what you were saying is children should have access to adult content.
Well, what I would say, I mean, what I genuinely believe is, I believe in letting people read whatever the hell they want.
I don't think 12-year-olds should learn about blowjobs.
I totally disagree.
You think you should?
100%.
You think they should have a book? You see, this is the problem.
No. Well, just like someone as a parent.
What about
like? I think hiding information from children. Like let me tell you something. Adults are not smart enough to know what children need to know. And also, if you hide information from them, they find it. They just find it in a different way.
Well, so this is a big component.
This is a practical question. It's not a question of like morality or anything like that.
No, it is.
Well, morality is of very little interest to me.
So the issue is, it's not about the
left or right.
The right has decided to ban books. The right is upholding a very basic moral standard that's been in this country for a long time. You can call it traditional. For instance, in
I have no interest in morality, left or right. Morality is there's nothing more blinding than moral clarity.
I'm not saying you have to. I'm saying this is a core component in what's ripping this country apart.
Yeah.
People on the right. So we have a book over here called "This Book is Gay."
Right.
A teacher had the police called on her because the book explains how to use Grindr. And she was instructing 10 to 12-year-olds on how to use a gay adult dating app. Well, if children were to use that app, they'd be not only in violation of the terms of the app, but they would be engaging in, not themselves, but illegal activity with those adults.
You don't have kids, right?
No.
Dude, every kid who has a phone has access to the sum total
of
all grossness of information.
But hold on.
My point is, like, an actual book is probably better for them than if they go on their phone and say, what is a blowjob?
But my point is not what the kids should be doing. My point is the distinction between the left and the right. In this country, up until the advent of the internet, if a child walked into an adult bookstore and the person who ran the store let them in, they would be criminally charged for it. When the internet comes out, we see the emergence of what we would describe as the modern left saying, yeah, well, you got a phone, the kids can see it anyway. The traditional American position has for the past 100 years has been, do not give kids access to contraband because they're not ready for it or for whatever reason. And the left is, well, it's there, so be it.
See, listen, I think it's the same to me. Now, I am somewhat of an outsider here, but like the same thing is happening where it's like, where they're banning, like they're taking out all the offensive references in Roald Dahl. Like that's what the left does.
Right.
I hate it. Like it's totally unacceptable to me. Like the books are supposed to be left in their raw state for children to come and understand them and make their own minds up and deal with reality. And it's the same thing to me with these other examples you have. Like first of all, this is not about what's the benefit for the children because nobody knows what a book does to a child. Right, like that's part of the power of reading. Right.
If the book is
nobody knows.
Hold on. If the book says here's how you use Grindr, then the effect is a child learns how to use Grindr.
No, that's what could easily happen is they would go, that is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life.
No, I know, but it's still not how to use it. I'm talking about fact-based 1, 2, 3, 4.
We are in an information age. I mean, the idea that you're going to keep information from children is just ludicrous. But I don't want to. My point here is only that these debates that happen are removed from the actual life of experience doing this stuff. Now,
what do you mean?
Well, because when you're parenting, you're dealing with a world where your children are exposed to everything. That's the actual plight of a parent, right? Like the actual plight of a parent is like, my children can go on and look up on YouTube and see a woman having sex with an icicle. Right, like that is so all these debates around these books, that's nothing, right? Well,
it's an attempt by the right to stop these things.
I still want to point.
They certainly are not trying to attempt to stop that stuff.
They absolutely are.
These are internecine debates among themselves for like point scoring. It has nothing to do with actual policy. It has nothing to do with actual how are we educating our children.
It's literally about the curation of school libraries. There is no ban on the content of these books.
In my city, in Mississauga,
that's Canada, not Florida.
The school board pulled every book in a left-wing fury, pulled every book written before 2008.
Did Amazon?
No, but listen, that's so,
the point.
It's so wrong.
Amazon
to me
has banned books.
Amazon has absolutely banned books.
But
they're also a market. But like my point is I hate that.
But my point,
I hate that so much.
Listen.
My point is the argument that you're making about curation is not an argument about banning. And we're talking about this as if it is about banning. This is not about banning. This is about what goes into schools. This particular topic is about what goes into school libraries, and that makes a difference. Because there has to be curation, because there's no way you can have every book in a school library. And they're going to decide which ones are acceptable and which are not. And to classify it as banning or call it censorship is to deceive what people are talking about. It's not censorship.
Censorship does not mean like we censor a lot. We censor a lot of things like child abuse videos on the internet.
Yes, for sure.
We have people that we decide some things cross a moral line and we don't want that publicly available. That's a fact.
But it's not that it's publicly. It's only in public schools. The curation is what I'm talking about.
Censorship is just an authority deciding what should or should not be available and what should be removed.
And that's my point. That's my exact point.
My point here is this debate. You're saying I say this, he says this. I don't care right now for the sake of conversation. Obviously, if you watch Timcast IRL, you're going to get my heavy opinions, these whatever. My point here is look at the distinction in how we see the world. Mm-hmm. There is no rectifying that. So when we go back to the original question of what document unifies this country.
Now let's return to that, because that is actually the more interesting question.
My final point is when Jen Kuger came on this show, I think we had a great conversation, and I tried to explain to me so we can have a conversation and literally try to find where we're going to win together.
Right.
We can argue about the other stuff after.
Yeah, right.
And when it came to the question of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, Cenk said, I don't care what it's about. It's racist. Therefore, it's done. Don't defend him. Don't explain, period.
Wow.
My worldview is, what's the truth? How did this happen and how do we stop it from happening?
Well, it's just not a system, right? Like you need an actual system. His
view was, a black man died, therefore it's racist, and there's no excuse.
Right.
So there's two very distinct worldviews.
Those are cases. Like no one is ever going to be satisfied with the actual working out of the world, right? Like it's not like we have a huge housing problem. We have got all these problems. Like we got a lot of problems of our own. On the other hand, I feel like we have a system for working them out. What I feel in the United States is, one thing when you're a Canadian is like Americans they're great. There's nothing wrong with Americans, right? Like Americans are great, and if you have conversations with them, they absolutely are sensible, reasonable people. It's just that the system in which they operate their politics is so defunct and collapsing that it doesn't matter. Like everyone in this book on either side is a good person.
Right.
That is one thing we wanted to do in the book, because it's like politics is not made up of bad people. It's made up of actually good people with incentives that are so poor that it annihilates them.
I do think we have a lot of evil people in government.
I actually don't. I think there are idiots and there are players and there are people of this nature and there are people who become corrupt. But there are Jamie, a good person in a system with evil incentives cannot work is much worse than an evil person in a system with good incentives.
I see what you're saying.
It is the system, right? That creates these monsters.
I make a similar point that, Ian Crossland has made this point that you can do good with evil people. So there can be a very, very evil person who's smiling and being like, I just found out the fastest way to make a ton of money.
Right.
People love dogs. And I'm going to convince them to give me money, and all I got to do is save dogs. And their intention is personal gain, profit, and power, but the path to doing it is saving homeless dogs and creating dog shelters. The best path for an evil person to gain power and do their awful things could be something we actually have no problem with. Then there could be good people who are like, I want to save 1 million people, but I would have to change this policy, which is going to negatively impact a ton of people in a bad way.
Oh, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Exactly. So it's possible. But that being said, I'm just going to come out and say it. I think Adam Schiff is evil.
Listen, I don't really believe there are evil people.
Oh, dude.
I think there are people in situations, like the reason you write a novel, like the reason we did this as a novel rather than a nonfiction book is because what the novel is about, what the novel does better than anything is people in situations. Right? Like, how do people respond to the environments they're in? Like, people are not...
Well, but there's the banality of evil, right?
Oh, 100%.
And so you can be an evil person while bumbling about.
Well, that's exactly it. That's why it's so important to know that if you were put in the situation that an evil person wasn't, you could easily end up like them. That is the basis of humanism, right? It's like
some people, most people.
It is a reaction between yourself and the situation you find yourself in. That's life. Right? Like that's the actual substance of life. It's not like he's evil, he's good. He came out as some kind of shining knight out of the womb. She came out as some kind of monster. Like that's not the reality.
Well, the reality is true good and true evil are very rare, but they do exist. And the average person, as you mentioned it, is a victim of
I've never met it. I put that in for everyone.
You've never met an evil person?
No, well, I've met psychopaths. And I've met people, and I've met sociopaths.
I suppose it's a question how do you define evil?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, the farther I go, like in life, I just think tout comprendre et tout pardonner, right? Like to understand is to pardon, right? Like if you understand where people find themselves in the situations they find themselves in, like these people end America, the good guys.
So
right, but it's not because of them. It's because of their. It's not because of their hearts.
I'll give you an example of what of one component I view to be evil. I talk about
this got super philosophical super fast.
Everything is metaphysical.
We're going to be talking about like St. Augustine soon or something.
Well, yes. Before we go, I want to address that real quick. The reason that we have such differing opinions and problems coming down on whether or not the First Amendment is worth saving is because people are now fighting about whether or not they believe in Enlightenment principles or if they believe in postmodern principles, and it's a metaphysical, philosophical difference. It's not because when the Constitution was written, it was kind of a given that the Enlightenment was the way to the Enlightenment principles are what you should base your society on because you could come in contact with reality. Since then, there's been a lot. We've had Nietzsche, we've had Hegel, we've had Marx, we've had a lot of philosophers that have really kind of turned that upside down. And now we're living in postmodern times where people are more
it's identity based.
It's not. Well, it's identity based because of postmodernism.
Yeah,
because there is no truth, there is no right, there is no correct. So the things that we're talking about boil down to metaphysical.
I would just tell you,
but correction. They don't say there's no truth. They say there is no truth but power.
Yes, postmodern. Yes, right. Absolutely.
But I want to make
power
a point.
Comes out of the barrel of a gun.
I'll explain to
power is words to them.
Yeah.
But dominance, influence, control. Yeah. An example of evil, in my opinion, that I experienced is during Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah.
These people are protesting. They're protesting for a reason. Many of these people want a better life. And I met a prominent journalist who worked for a large publication who we had a conversation. This is a prominent activist at Occupy Wall Street and journalist. And I said, look, I agree. I'm fairly nihilistic, honestly. I don't know what matters or why we do the things we do, what the end result is going to be. So the only thing I can do is try to maximize the things that we think are good. Creation, preservation, and the positive things in life. And the response I got from this person was, but don't you just want to make it all burn? Like, if you don't care, then nothing matters. Let's just shake it up and burn it to the ground. This is a prominent writer for a major publication who told me that their motivations behind everything they do was the destruction of stable society, of success, and to watch people struggle and burn because nothing matters anyway.
Let me tell you a story.
That's evil.
Let me tell you a story. Like, I remember talking to this researcher when I was doing this podcast on child rearing, right? And we were doing this episode on spanking and shouting, right? And like whether you should spank or shout at your kids. And I talked to the leading expert on the world on discipline, on childhood discipline, who believed, and I came to agree with him, that not only is spanking ineffective, but also shouting at your children is ineffective. Like you shouldn't actually do this. It's not necessarily that it's bad parenting, it's just, it doesn't work, right? And he told me a story once about how he was working in a lab with a guy who beat his kid every day. And he was analyzing him and trying to figure out what he did, right? And part of me was like, why didn't you just arrest this guy? Right? Like, surely a man who beats his son every day should just be in jail. But he was, this researcher, by studying this person, by removing himself from the question of good and evil, by analyzing it, had come to the most powerful insights about child rearing that had ever existed. right? So to me, like, yeah, and he talked this guy out of doing that, by the way, right? Like the man obviously wanted to improve and was trying to get the violence out of him, and like he talked him out of that, and I always thought, I don't know how I feel about it, right? But I'm not sure what the correct response here is, but I would say that what I feel my role is in this world is to try to understand so that we can get to better things, rather than just saying you beat your kid every day, you're a monster. It's like, okay, well, how do we understand this?
I agree.
And how do we make it better?